The showroom was all chrome and shine, like a giant mirror reflecting the fancy cars parked inside. The salesman, all with slick-back hair and pearly white smiles, talked about the cars with practiced enthusiasm, their words sounding more like memorized scripts than genuine passion. Marco, however, stood out like a sore thumb. He wasn't built for fancy. His work boots left a trail of dirt on the polished floor, and grease stained his hands like permanent tattoos. His hair wouldn't stay put, wild and free like a stray dog. But unlike the other boys, Marco understood motors. He could listen to their coughs and sputters, diagnose their problems like a doctor, and fix them with callous fingers that move with the grace of a pianist. But in this world where looks mattered more than skills, he remained an invisible man. The other salesmen, with their expensive suits and practice charm, were the golden boys, constantly praised and promoted. Despite consistently exceeding expectations, Marco remained stuck in the repair bay, his talent buried under layers of grease and overlooked potential. One hot summer day, the usual showroom chatter was shattered by a sound that sent shivers down everyone's spine: the sputtering death rattle of an engine. It belonged to the showroom's crown jewel, a sleek silver Ferrari owned by a bigwig named Mr. Kensington. The air crackled with nervous energy as Mr. Kensington stormed out of his car, his face redder than a stop sign. The salesmen swarmed around the dead Ferrari like confused bees, their sales pitches failing miserably against the stubborn engine. They knew how to sell, not how to fix. Their knowledge was limited to horsepower and sleek design. Mr. Kensington's frustrated screams echoed through the showroom, drowned out only by the ticking of the cooling engine. From the back of the repair bay, where he was carefully dismantling an old car, Marco watched the drama unfold. A spark of challenge flickered in his eyes. He knew these fancy cars, knew them better than any brochure or sales pitch. They weren't just expensive toys, they were intricate puzzles, symphonies of metal and oil that spoke a language only he understood. Marco didn't care about the surprised looks he got from his colleagues. He just walked right up to the fancy Ferrari, his old boots leaving marks on the shiny floor. He wasn't there to show off or make a sale, he just wanted to fix the car. That's what he did best. In that moment, the guy who always got dirty under the hood became the real master mechanic, ready to show everyone that it wasn't how you looked that mattered, but what you could actually do. The room exploded. Mr. Kensington, his face as red as a Ferrari, boomed, "This is outrageous." His voice bounced around like a tennis ball gone wild, making the showroom floor vibrate. The polished salesman, accustomed to smooth talk and smiles, fluttered around the dead car like confused chickens. They knew cars like they knew poetry, all fancy words and no fix. But Marco wasn't part of the chaos. In the back, elbows deep in an old engine, he barely heard the shouting. He was like a conductor, waiting for the orchestra to settle before he began his own piece. He saw the challenge, a spark in his eyes. He wasn't built for this place, his worn boots scuffing the floor, and his greasy clothes clashing with the shiny surroundings. But beneath his rough exterior, he understood engines, a language only he spoke fluently. Ignoring the surprised looks, Marco walked towards the Ferrari, quiet confidence in every step. He wasn't there to show off, just to fix the car. That was what he did best. He knelt down, silencing the room with his concentration. Like a doctor, he examined the engine, his ears listening to the car's whispers. He didn't need any fancy machines, just his years of experience and a sharp mind. Time flew as Marco checked every inch, his forehead furrowed in concentration. He was a detective, searching for the culprit. Every click and clack was a clue that led him closer. The room held its breath, watching the grease-stained mechanic at work. Finally, a grin spread across Marco's face. He found the problem. A tiny sensor, hidden from everyone else, was causing all the trouble. A little gremlin interfering with the smooth running of the car. A silent promise formed in his mind. He would make the engine sing again. With a roll of his sleeves, Marco opened his toolbox, a well-worn friend filled with more than just tools. He knew exactly what he needed, his movements quick and sure as he grabbed the right part. The only sound was the clink of metal as he replaced the faulty sensor, his greasy hands moving like a surgeon's, repairing the car's broken rhythm. He worked for what seemed like an eternity, putting everything back together. He wasn't just fixing a car, he was proving a point that real value wasn't in how you looked, but in what you could actually do. With a final tightening of a bolt, he stood up, wiping his hands on his greasy overalls. He didn't look at the crowd, just at the car. The challenge had been met, the engine ready to come back to life. With a practiced flick of his wrist, Marco plugged the charger into the Ferrari and flipped the switch. The room held its breath, a tense silence, broken only by the nervous coughs of the salesman. Then, miraculously, the engine sputtered to life, a low purr filling the air like a familiar song, forgotten and then remembered. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room, the tension dissipating like a deflating balloon. Mr. Kensington, his face now the color of a healthy peach, stared at the revived car in disbelief. He slowly turned to Marco, his initial anger replaced by a flicker of something new, genuine, heartfelt respect. "You did it," he said, his voice gruff but filled with a sincere appreciation he couldn't quite hide. "I thought for sure I was leaving my baby here." Marco just nodded and wiped his greasy hands on his overalls. He wasn't one for grand speeches or empty compliments, he just liked fixing things. And the satisfied purr of the engine, a sound akin to a grateful sigh, was all the reward he needed. The atmosphere in the showroom changed suddenly, like the changing seasons. The salesman who had previously dismissed Marco as just another grease monkey now looked at him with newfound respect. The air crackled with a low hum of admiration, a silent acknowledgement of his skill that spoke volumes more than any words could. But despite the change in atmosphere, there were no immediate promotions or fanfare. Ever the pragmatist, Marco simply returned to his repair bay, the familiar comfort of grease and metal welcoming him back like an old friend. He knew his worth wasn't measured by titles or fancy speeches, but by the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. He went about his work with renewed focus, the memory of Mr. Kensington's gratitude a spark of warmth in his heart. He knew that true recognition often comes from the people you least expect, and that the quiet satisfaction of a job well done is often worth more than any outward praise. As Mr. Kensington's words hung in the air, a small smile played on Marco's lips. It wasn't an ostentatious smile, but rather a warm feeling that spread through him like sunshine. He wasn't used to people thanking him, especially someone as important as Mr. Kensington. Usually Mr. Kensington got the respect, not the other way around. But today was different. Marco, the mechanic with grease under his nails, had fixed the fancy car, and Mr. Kensington's simple thank you meant more to him than any trophy. Marco didn't care about fancy titles or becoming a big shot. He didn't need his name on a fancy sign or his face on a giant poster. For him, the real prize was the quiet feeling of knowing he'd done a good job. He liked taking something broken and making it work again, like putting the music back into the machine with his own hands and seeing the relief and gratitude on Mr. Kensington's face. That was all the proof he needed that had done something important. A few weeks later, Mr. Kensington, impressed with Marco's skill and work ethic, couldn't stop talking about him to his friends. One of those friends owned another garage, a place that valued talent over shiny shoes. He heard about Marco and decided to see for himself. He watched Marco work, saw the magic in his hands, and knew he had to have him on his team. So Marco made a move. He left the fancy showroom behind and started working at the new garage. He got a raise, better benefits, and most importantly, the respect he deserved. He was still the same Marco, the quiet hero, with grease under his fingernails. The change of scenery also brought unexpected friendships. The mechanics at the new shop were more like a close-knit family than colleagues. They swapped stories, traded tips, and laughed about the quirks of the trade. Marco found himself surrounded by people who appreciated the essence of the craft as much as he did. The grease stains on his overalls were badges of honor, symbols of hard work and dedication that resonated with his newfound peers. Over time, Marco's influence went beyond repairing engines. His passion for his work became contagious, inspiring others to look beyond the surface and appreciate the beauty of a well-tuned machine. The new shop, once a hidden gem, gained a reputation for exceptional service and skilled mechanics with Marco at the helm. One day, as Marco was elbow deep in another engine, Mr. Kensington paid an unexpected visit. The silver Ferrari purred like a contented cat, a testament to Marco's skill. Mr. Kensington didn't say much. A nod of recognition and a firm handshake were enough. In the end, Marco didn't need a spotlight, he just needed the steady hum of engines and the quiet nods of approval from those who really understood. And so, with every car he repaired, Marco wrote his own story, a tale of resilience, skill, and the triumph of substance in a world often blinded by style.